Hi dear viewer, welcome to yet another episode of our family talk show here at Church of Uganda Family TV. Oh my god, it's really exciting. I'm calling it How We Met Show. This is the family talk show, and as usual, we are excited to be here. It's yet another Friday. How are you? Oh my god, today is the 14th of July 2023. The year is really running. Where is the year going? How are you doing anyways? How far with the New Year's resolutions? We hope all is well. Well, today we have amazing guests in the studio. Timothy Mugenyi together with his dear wife, Rachael Mugenyi. And I'll take a minute to introduce them. Dear people, today I've brought you amazing people. And of course, today it is a blessed day. We are discussing intimacy in marriage. But before we dig deep into this, let me introduce Timothy and his dear wife, Rachael. Timothy and Rachael Mugenyi love the Lord, love people, been married for 6 years and have one child. Oh my God, you people, you look so very young and you've been married for 6 years.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
How do you make it?
God.
Good, eh? Anyways, first say hello to the viewers and then we continue with this.
All right. Hi, everyone. I hope you're well. Timothy Mugenyi is my name, like Clare has mentioned, and I'm happy to be here.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Rachael Mugenyi.
Wow. And they are passionate about building kingdom marriages and relationships, which they started while they were on their courtship journey. Okay, how? How?
You know when you're talking to people when you're dating and people are planning on getting married, and you just have conversations. People are dating, they're in a relationship, and they are committed and trying to go towards marriage. Although we are not yet married, but at least we are having those conversations as friends, holding one another accountable, and then kind of leading towards that. And I don't know if you want to add on.
Yeah, so we just walked with our friends, some of our friends who were the first to get married or were the first to be in longer relationships in terms of time. And so then we walked with them, we told them, you'll find these challenges. So it's something we started from that way back when.
Wow. How long was that?
That was 20. Oh gosh, this is so many years.
So very.
I don't want you to calculate our age. I think we'll just leave it there.
I didn't know that men also feared.
No, it's just for my wife's.
Are you sure?
You're checking for a friend there.
Yeah,
Really?
protect her in this space, safe space.
Awesome. And the Mugenyis are leaders in the marriage fellowship at All Saints Chapel Reza. They are also hosts of a podcast on YouTube called The Relationship Notes and Stories. If you hold me, Bwenje, I'm going to give you a chance and you talk about that. Anyways, you're welcome.
Thank you, Claire.
Happy to have you here.
Happy to be
Rachel,
here.
you're looking great.
Thank you. Looking great
Wow,
yourself.
Just like that. Thank you for taking care of Timothy. Okay, 6 years, eh?
Yes.
Next time I'm going to invite you to tell us, about the 6 years. That's really interesting.
Yes.
Dear viewer, today I bring you, remember my promise? The last time I hosted Mr. and Mrs. Kachira, who were discussing training children of life. Who remembers? I know Clare Bakashava, who's our #1 fan of the family talk show, remembers very well. And I promised that I will invite the children, and today we have the child and the children really. And I want to hear from you. They told us from their sharing, actually they invested a lot in you.
Yes.
They invested a lot, and I loved everything about what they shared, and that's why I promised that I will invite their children, and they attest to this. And of course, I'm saying it already. Amen. But anyways, let me take it from you, Rachael.
Yeah.
How was it? This is our icebreaker. How was it then? How did you feel when they were, pushing you to do the right thing? How were you? Were you okay with it? Did you feel like, okay, they are really pushing us so hard? How was it?
Well, in some circumstances, they were throwing us in the deep end, which had their own lessons that they were teaching us at that time. But other than that, they were very present with us, and they walked the journey of parenting together. As husband and wife, and we felt that as children. And looking back now, yes, I will say they invested, and I'm a product of what they did.
I saw that. To God be the glory.
Amen.
And now that you are married, you're parenting, do you feel they did their best part?
Yes, actually, I wonder how they did it, because now I read material and I get to see that the things they were doing were actually in some of the materials we read, like books, parenting books, and I ask myself, how did they know this? But it was God.
It was God.
It was God.
Wow. So the son-in-law. Do you
Do I disagree?
do you disagree or you agree?
What if my in-laws are watching?
No, it's not.
But yes, I
You're
do
a
agree.
child of God.
I do agree. I think the role that not just for her parents, but any parents play, shape the perception a person will have of what family they want to have in future, how it will look like, how the values they will carry, and all of that. And I won't disagree from interacting with them and also hearing some of the things they have said, but also witnessing it firsthand through one of the byproducts
I can
of
see.
marriage.
Wow.
I can see that, yes, it's
You're
actually
blessed.
something that happens.
Kudos. Thumbs up. Well done, Mr. and Mrs. Kachira. Shout out to you. Well done. Well done. Now I'm safe. The viewers are happy. I'm happy. Awesome. This is the Family Talk Show, of course, the #1 biggest show in the entire world. And of course, with me, your world's favorite host, Clare Bwenje. And now we dig into our show tonight. Our topic is intimacy in marriage. Well, when people talk about intimacy, many people run to the physical intimacy, but in our discussion today, you get to realize that actually there are quite very many different types of intimacy, and the Mugenyis are right here to make us understand all this. And of course, without wasting any further ado, allow me, call them on board, please. The floor is all yours. I will speak less and give you the floor to dig into it. Yeah, that's why you are here. So anyways, what are your thoughts on different kinds of intimacy in marriage? Do you believe they are of equal importance, or is one more important than the other?
Thank you. Intimacy is quite pivotal, for lack of a better word, in the essence that intimacy is like the glue of the marriage that sticks you together as a couple. For example, you realize there is the element of communication in intimacy. There is the element of your emotions. There is the element of your expression of love. There is the sexual element that lies therein as well. There is the interaction with one another. And all those come together and they form this thing that we call intimacy that I believe is like a foundation of love. There's a popular saying that people say, intimacy is intimacy. And intimacy means I am opening up myself to you to have a look inside. But I'm going to let my wife just add on to it.
Yes, it's just that atmosphere, that depth of commitment where you know your spouse fully, you know who they are, they know who you are, and you accept them. So you can't just tag it to physical. It's all the other aspects of intimacy that come together, like he said, and then just become beautiful. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, really nice. So what are the different types of intimacy that we are talking about here?
Okay, so before we get into the types of intimacy that we'd like to share, the #1 most important intimacy is intimacy with God. You know, it really starts with God. And why is because you can't transfer your expectations or your needs to your spouse. So some people get married and they expect their spouse to meet all their needs, and yet there are certain needs that your spouse will never meet. Needs like identity. Your identity should come from God, knowing who you are, whose you are, knowing that he formed you in your mother's womb before you were even born. You know, things like purpose. You have a purpose. It's only God who can reveal that purpose to you. Things like security. People have security in friends, in property, in government, but your security should come from God, not
From
even
God.
your spouse.
Exactly.
Yeah. So those are some of the, even acceptance. Another example is acceptance. You know, people accept you because they don't know so much about you. But the moment they know everything, human love is conditional, but the love of God is not conditional, it's unconditional. So that intimacy with God is very important. And why it's important is because once you have that intimacy with God, then you relieve the burden of your spouse to meet that, because you're getting that from God. And now what you do with your spouse is now grow and nurture that relationship. So I wanted to highlight that it's very important, and because of that, intimacy with God, yes, and because of that, intimacy with God, intimacy with your spouse, it requires effort. It doesn't come automatically. You won't wake up after the wedding and you're intimate for all those years, all those months, all the levels. You're flying, you know where the husband loves his wife, and where the wife understands how she should help the husband. You only know that from intimacy. Yes. Sure. So some of the types of intimacy we would like to share with you. Spiritual. I'll start with spiritual intimacy. How do you share about your beliefs? You're sharing your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs, or having spiritual practices that you do together. For example, for us, we started attending Sunday school together because we have a child, and we actually got together for the service. So that's going to be our service for a while now. And that's where we all get the word with our child. We all sing, and that's where we have our connection, spiritual intimacy. There's also prayer, there's worshiping together there, and that builds a closeness, which comes also from your own personal relationship with God, but now you're building this relationship with your spouse. That is spiritual intimacy. So reading the Bible together, discussing. One of the things we also do is we can watch a teaching and discuss.
Exactly.
And say, and pause and say, what do you learn from this? What do you feel? Oh, I'm convicted here, or I'm sorry this happened the last time, and things like that.
So at what time do you do that? I think you all work. So when do you get time to discuss and read the Bible together and pray together?
I think it's important to make the time.
Create the time. I like that.
Even though you're busy with work, creating intimacy doesn't need I hate to say this statement, doesn't need a special moment. You have every single moment you have is an opportunity for you to express love. Every single moment you have is an opportunity for you to be intimate with your spouse on different levels. Like just mentioned the spiritual thing. And so at the end of the day, we get that opportunity, or even when we have just come home before a meal, especially with our child, we can have a moment to sing songs, but also just speak some things into his life, as well as also maybe relate with one another and just reflect on things. People take a lot of time to watch news and things like that. Much as, yes, we take time to do the same, but we also take time to say, okay, what can we watch that is going to be spiritually nourishing to both of us? And we can be able to converse about the same and then say, oh, I like this. Was this a fresh perspective of the scripture for you? And things like that. So, so you spoke about spiritual intimacy. Maybe another intimacy that's present is also because I've just talked about experiencing some of these things together, learning together, is the intellectual intimacy.
I like that.
The intellectual intimacy, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you're with your spouse and you're like, oh, I watched this, and you have a conversation, a psychological conversation where you're actually applying your minds, and you just look at your person and you're like, this person is really intelligent in their understanding of these things, or you have a greater appreciation for their perspective on that. In that, you get a way of bonding, because you have the two perspectives that are different, and you come to a mutual understanding, and with that you get closer. I don't know if that makes sense. Like how our professionals can go for a conference and they are having a professionals talk. All of them are talking about the same thing, but from different perspectives. But slowly but surely they are gelling, and you find them building relationships as a result of that. I'm not saying that is intimacy, but that's a form of intimacy. If you carried into your marriage, you would be able to look at your spouse and have a greater, more profound respect for them because of the perspective they have or a direction of thinking. Another one would even be like social intimacy. Social intimacy, which is like the interactions with people going out on dates and experiencing life together. So for example, like for us, it would be like watching movies or going to the cinema or going on dates, or even just taking the time to say, okay, like in COVID, everybody took walks. Like taking those walks and then having those conversations. It was a time for us to be able to build one another, ask each other questions, and within the doing of activities together, you actually get into a deeper level of understanding one another because you appreciate each other more. You can look back on it as a memory and be like, oh, remember when I learned how to ride a horse or something like that, or went on a horse for the first time, and you look back at it as a memory and you're like, hey, remember how you felt and how this happened, and something like that. And it creates that beauty in your marriage and creates that intimacy.
Another example maybe I'll share regarding social intimacies. He mentioned the lockdown, and I remember he started cooking. You know, so doing activities, you don't have to do it's not only things that you know, it can be new things. For him, cooking was new to him, you know, but he said, let me try. And we found that we were spending a lot of time together in the kitchen. And, you know, by the time you go to have the meal, you've started conversation way before. You're just continuing it over the meal, and you're growing in the conversation. You don't even want to watch anything because you're building this intimacy from the activity. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be anything complicated, you know, walks, something your spouse likes to do, or something you like to do, or something you can challenge yourself like he did. And, you know, start cooking, because after then he would tell me, no, today I'm making the lunch, or no, today I'm making the dinner. I was like, oh, okay. So then I felt that he understood what it took for a meal to come to the table. Yeah. Another type of intimacy that I'll share on is emotional, which is created through sharing your feelings, your emotions, your, you know, ask yourself how vulnerable are you sharing your darkest fears or deepest dreams or hopes or aspirations, you know, with your spouse, allowing your spouse safe space for you to open up and to say these things, you know, and not to be judged, you know, and not to be criticized, but it could even be something like something that happened in your childhood, something that traumatized you, you know, that you feel you can't share with your parents anymore, but you're like, I went through this when I was growing up, and I think it's affecting me in our marriage because this is where it's coming from. And if there's that space which is open and vulnerable and safe for your spouse to open up, and you listen to them and you hear them, and sometimes, many times we share things and you may not understand what he's saying, or you may not entirely agree, and there's a statement I say, I hear you. I hear you means I'm listening, I understand what you're saying, I may not respond now, but I hear you, and, you know, continue sharing. Oh, thanks for sharing. Yeah, so that's one of the intimacies that we've discussed.
Yeah, and then maybe the last one, which probably we can just say, is the physical intimacy that everybody is expecting us to expound today. But we may not get into it so much. But the physical intimacy is also a very important part. This is the sex, of course, that exists, the public displays of affection and all. Because this is a family show, I don't know if I can go into details about it, but let's just say it's important and leave it at that.
And if the other aspects or the other areas of intimacy that we've discussed are being worked on, then this physical sexual intimacy becomes very easy. You know, and for us women, we are relational beings. We want to connect with you. I usually tell him, tell me more than that. You know, what's really happening, you know, and how did you feel about it? So it's not about sharing just facts, things that happened. I went to work, or I had a meeting. What happened in the meeting? Was it successful? How did you feel about this? How did it make you feel? Because there you know how to support your spouse. And sometimes when you come back home and you realize that day has been tough, you know how to make it better for your spouse. You know, maybe this time the child will go to bed early, or you'll play some music, you know, because you are aware. But if you're not aware and you're not having these conversations, then it will be very difficult for you to support your spouse. Yeah,
exactly. I like that. Is this something that has come easy for you guys, or this whole building of intimacy, has it come easy for you guys, or?
Like all good things, it comes with work and it comes with effort.
That's what I mean.
Because there can be different times in your relationship where you feel like you're moving very fast in a particular area of intimacy. Like you may feel like we are going on dates, we are doing a lot of this. So you feel very socially connected to your person in terms of activities. But then I'm not emotionally open to you. So as a result, even though, yes, we are hanging out, we are friends, we have this relationship, it's only present or strong in those times.
Yes.
Minus those times, it's not existent. So even if we are, let's say, emotionally connected, and let's say the social aspect is lacking.
Is lacking, yes.
It's a bit tricky. So the the talent, okay, I won't call it a talent, the investment is to find how you can balance all of those things. There are different seasons of life that will probably call for one being more required than others, but it's a gradual work in progress. To come back to your question, was it easy? Yes and no. I don't know if that's safe to say. Yes, because we tried to gradually grow. We didn't know about all these types of intimacy when we got married. We had ideas of them, but as we have gone on in time, we have realized, oh, this is how we can communicate better, this is how we can do this, this is how we can support one another. And as a result, consequently, it has gotten better.
Or maybe realizing in the early years of our marriage, specifically the months after we got married, where you come back home and, like I said, he wasn't into cooking, so then I go start to prepare dinner, and then he goes to do whatever he's doing. So it could be in the small things that you don't know start to create this isolation and the rift, and slowly the rift increases. So by the time I finish preparing dinner and we're having dinner, he's still watching something that he wants to complete. So then we'll watch it, but we're not actually having conversation. And then he'll want to complete it, and then I will want to go to bed because work starts early the next day. And then you find that you're not having these conversations. I don't know how he's doing. I don't know how his day has been. He doesn't know how I'm doing. And then you end up you're in the same space, but you don't really know how your spouse is. Like he said at the beginning, it's into me, see. So you're not even allowing me the opportunity for me to show you who I am or what's going on in my life. And during that season, he shares an interesting story of what made him realize that. So I think I will allow you to say.
I think it's very early on in the show.
No, it's okay.
But anyway, we got to a point where we had become like islands, where she was enjoying her life and I was enjoying my life. So I would come home and relax and unwind as an individual. She would be home also as well, make sure there's food and all of that, and unwind as an individual. So as a result, we're two people who are married. Yes, you spend time together. Yes, you have some conversations, but the intimacy in terms of connection, in conversation, in all of that, was pretty much a bit taking a back seat. So we were in the public eye, a happily married couple, but in our side, we are looking at ourselves and saying, hey, there's some gap here. And as a result of that, we got to a point where it became like a wake-up call, and we said, okay, we really need to work on this. It wasn't we, it was like me realizing we need to put in the effort so that the intimacy can grow.
Wow. Thank you very much. The Family Talk Show will take a quick break. Please grab a cup of tea or juice. This show continues. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back from that quick short break. How is Kachai? How is juice? Wow, the Family Talk Show. I hope you guys are really enjoying and you are really happy with family. Well, today our discussion is on intimacy in marriage, and our guests in the studio who are actually doing a very, very good job. Oh my God, this is awesome. The Mugenyis, you are most welcome once again, and we are blessed to have you here. We are enjoying everything. Before we went for a break, we were talking about the different types of intimacy, and they talked about the emotional bit, the spiritual, the physical, and the intellectual, right? So that is really, really good. And I'll take it from you, Rachel.
Okay, so even as we're discussing and as we're watching and as you're listening and watching us, I just have some questions that I want to have you think about as we go on. Ask yourself, how open, how vulnerable, how respectful, how safe and comfortable are you with your spouse? Think about it and ask yourself that. How dedicated are you to your spouse, spiritual, physical, emotional, social, and intellectual intimacy? Do you want to see it to grow? Do you want to nurture it? How do you rate yourself in how into me your spouse sees you? How do you rate yourself in how you accept or allow your spouse to see who you really are and know who you really are and accept you for who you really are? And finally, when or have you felt the most intimate with your spouse? That one you can share with your spouse.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. I hope you're answering the the questions. Well, so what are your thoughts on conflict in a marriage, and how do you believe conflict should be handled? You guys, have you faced any conflicts in marriage? You guys are angels, eh? Tell me, Adi, and I go. No. And I close the show because
of course, we have had conflicts. If we have not had conflicts, then we are not in love. Because if you exist with someone in the same space for a prolonged period of time and you commit yourselves to them, there are things that you will still desire and there are things the other person will still desire. Conflict is a natural byproduct of working together. If let's say there's no friction in working together, that means there's also no progress.
Exactly.
It means we are not having open and honest and real conversations with one another as well. So yes, have we had conflict? Absolutely. Is that true or false?
Affirmative.
But how have we dealt with conflict is communication and trying to talk through things. Having the ability to have those tough conversations is something that's very important. It goes back to also like the intimacy. How open and willing am I to open up to my wife and tell her, this is how you made me feel, and also for her to do the same and say, I disagree with how you carried out this or how you expressed yourself. Because the conflict comes from very small things. A very loose statement that's made in expression can cause a conflict. Even if it's not intended to hurt. But the thing is, we will hurt the people we love because we love them. And the biggest reason is not because we love them that we hurt them, it's because we are our most vulnerable selves with them. Especially when you get married, this is the person who you have chosen to get vulnerable with. As a result of choosing to get vulnerable with them, there's an element which is undeniable that your real self, your spouse will see. And even you, sometimes you don't like your real self. You're subjecting someone else to your real self.
Yeah.
And the person is also obviously not going to be comfortable because also then they have their version of themselves. And so that conflict will come. But the biggest thing has been communication and trying to understand one another. Because when you talk about it, you'll get to realize, what am I fighting for? Is this really worth going to sleep angry over? Is this really worth being annoyed for, like tying a sumbusa for like 2 weeks or something like that? It's just basically that.
I think maybe to add to what he's saying is we usually team, like we realize that this is what's causing the conflict. This is actually the issue. So we separate ourselves from the issue and know, oh, okay, it's waking up early that's the issue. So then how do we wake up early? We need to go to bed earlier. We need to put the child to bed earlier. We need to have dinner earlier. And then we'll tackle the issue as opposed to head on that it's the person. So when you separate yourself out of a situation and know that we need to be a team, and as a team, you confront the issue and the conflict much easier and stronger because two are better than one. And then another thing that we usually talk about is perspectives. Perspectives is something that's very, very important because you can be two people going through the same thing, but you have completely different perspectives. So you're both in jam or you're both going through a particular situation, but I'm feeling a certain way and he's feeling a certain way, and because I'm feeling a certain way, I expect him to understand the way that I'm feeling, but he may not, because he could be experiencing it in his own lens, through his own lens. And until I stop to say, okay, this is my lens, but how are you? What is your lens? And by the time you listen to your spouse and realize they're telling you, no, I actually, this is what happened, the meeting delayed, and then I got an emergency at work, and then that's why I picked you up late. You will stop to see it from the perspective that you didn't pick up my calls, I waited for you, you picked me up late. It's now, oh, there was an emergency. Okay, is the person okay at work? It's now I'm listening to him, which goes back to what he's saying, communication and then also intimacy. So he's opening up to tell me and I'm receiving it. I'm allowing him to share freely. And then I realize that, oh, the issue was you picked me up late, but you were actually helping someone at work. And you see now how it becomes so minuscule, and you realize that's why you didn't pick up my calls. You were trying to deal with an emergency. But if I only look at it from my lens, I will be so justified to say you were supposed to pick me up at 5:30. How is it that you're here at 6:15? And then it will become a conflict, and yet it's not. Yes.
Maybe if I could just add a very silly thought. Okay, not a silly thought, but a question that maybe you would ask yourself when you're annoyed or in conflict. If this is something you're arguing over, and it's that important, will it be important 5-10 years from now? But let's say I picked you late or something like that, or not? If it's not, you can be able to get past it. I don't know if that makes sense. Have also the maturity not to say I have to win every single argument, I have to win every single fight,
or to face it,
and learn to say it's okay. Just to let it go and let your partner be. We could go on and on. But yeah, that's what we would say. But like what you said is very important. Separate the person from the issue. Diagnose the issue. The person is separate from the issue. Yeah.
So what really causes these conflicts in marriage? Because in the first place you chose yourselves. You love each other, and you know you're telling the whole world this is mine, whatever, you know, all those things. But now, where is the conflict coming from?
I think the conflict just comes from, maybe to use us, we haven't been married too long of a time, but we have had our fair share of conflict. And I think the thing just comes from the fact that, especially when you've just gotten married, you're two people who have lived all your lives apart from one another. Then out of the blue, after this wedding day, this honeymoon period, you're now stuck in the same house. So this is the time you find out, hey, this guy snores. Hey, my wife doesn't shower before bed. I'm not saying that's my wife, but some people doesn't shower before bed, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. And as a result, you start getting irritated, because imagine there are particular things you like. You say that, okay, like for the ladies, the toilet seat must be down. All my life as a single guy, the toilet seat has been up. You have married me, you've moved into my house, and now the new rule is the toilet seat must go down. Why should I do that? So as a result, it's those small things that actually are the birthplace of conflict. I don't know if that makes sense. Then it comes into the intellectual part, because you will have differences of opinion. Let's buy land here. No, let's not buy land, let's buy a car. No, let's not buy a car, let's go on a trip. No, let's don't do this, let's do this. Difference of opinion. Even when it comes to like spiritual matters, you find some couples who are not on the same spiritual wavelength when it comes to aspects of like tithe. No, you're giving God too much money. Other person is like, no, you can never outgive God. The other person is like, God is the one who provides. The other person is like, we are the ones who are doing the work. So those differences of opinion go a long way, and even you're seeing how they are playing into like the intimacy points. When it even comes to the social part of intimacy, how conflict can even come in. I want to go and like for example, for me, I love driving. I'm like, let's go and let me just drive. Like on a Sunday, I just want to go for a drive. Let me just go and drive. Where are you going? I don't know. I'm just driving. For her, she's like, let's sit down and have a conversation. Let's go for a date. Let's watch a movie together. Just a small thing like that can bring conflict, because I'm like, I want to do my thing, you want to do yours. I'm not saying necessarily these are the fights we have had, but these are like the baselines of the things that cause conflict in marriages, in relationships, and all of that. Honey, I don't know if you feel like there's something you would like to add using your lovely voice.
Well, regarding conflict, just imagine with your own siblings. You've lived with them or your parents, but you've had conflict all your life. You didn't agree entirely on everything, and these are your siblings. So how do you expect someone you've never lived with, you don't know, different background, different family, sometimes from a different country or even region, you know, and you expect to just automatically be sync? You'll have those differences, and in addition to that, the moment you start to want your way all the time, or always want your way, which is just selfishness, I would say. It breeds conflict. because then I would say, no, we're supposed to go on a date, not to drive. So let's do my thing. And when he refuses or says, no, last time we actually went and watched a movie, can we just go on a drive? And I refuse. You realize that selfishness brings about conflict. The moment you start putting yourself before your spouse, which even biblically is supposed to be a servant, really. The greatest of all should first be a servant. So asking myself, what does he need? Or how am I serving him in this? Or am I being a servant in this? And I had to continually challenge myself, even now, to ask him when we're talking about something. Ask him, what do you think? You go first. And he says, no, you go first. I said, no, you go first. Last time you went first.
And
so we realize, that's our conflict now. But you realize we're now trying not to be selfish. So we are accommodating each other. So if the last time we actually watched a movie, okay, this time let's actually go on a drive. So you kill the selfishness, and it also kills the conflict.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you, Timothy. I think you talked about communication. So how important do you think communication is in a marriage?
Without communication, how did you even get married? Because in order to get married, you had to communicate to the person. You had to say, I love you. You had to say, will you marry me?
When you say that,
the person has to say yes.
The person accepted, and now you can, be comfortable. I say, I did my part, and now. Anyway.
Yes, but communication is really purely the bedrock of marriage. It rises and falls. The power of the tongue that you have to tell your wife, I love you, you are the person that I cherish, you're the person I have chosen, to appreciate them, value them, and all of that. Communication is key.
It's key.
There is no two ways around it. We can say, someone may say, no, the sex must be key. Oh, no, the money is key. Oh, no, what? But the thing is, who are you talking to? Who is expressing themselves to you? Who are you listening to? What are you talking about? How is the other person making you feel emotionally? Does the person understand your point of view? Do you understand their point of view? Do you have communication is everything. I think if you do not invest in communication when you're married actively, it becomes very difficult. And I think there's a challenge that exists for everyone who gets married. The biggest challenge that exists is for you to be able to continually and continuously ensure that you are investing in building your marriage. And because you get married, and it's unlike other things, it's unless birth. But other things you have to work for them to get the certificate. But birth, you're born, congratulations, you came out of your mother's womb, here is a certificate. But marriage, I want to get married, here is the certificate, congratulations, you're married, now go. But it's like an invitation to start the work of the relationship. And if you talk to anyone who is married, they'll tell you, marriage is work. It's effort. It's time. So communication is something which is very important, but you also have to put in the time and the effort towards it.
Some couples don't necessarily have it easy, and I think we were one of those regarding communication, because you may find of the two of you, one communicates more easily or freely, or it just comes naturally for them to communicate, whereas the other is not. And in our case, that was one of our struggles. I came from a family that was just communicating.
Too much.
He says too much, but he I think he appreciates it now, because at any one point, even up now, I will know where each family member is and what they're doing. And when we are able to know that if there's any emergency, anything that happens, even if the phones are off, you know where to start from.
Wow, that's nice.
And that's something that we were raised up. So I get married to him, and it's a completely different, it's a different story. I get to work, and I can't even reach him because his phone is off, because he didn't charge the night before, and he didn't move with his charger, because it's just not, he just didn't think about it, and it's okay. So you can imagine the frustration I had, and why I'm sharing this is because there could be someone out there as well who's going through this. I would understand where they're coming from. Extend grace to your spouse, talk about it. And I shared my perspective. I told him, so I think, and I reached the point where I would start to charge the phone for him. Bought him a power bank. But you see the problem, helper. But you see the problem with that is that it's my initiative, it's not his. So one of us, I will get tired because it's not sustainable. You'll do it up until a certain point, and even the power bank fully charged would be forgotten at home unless I put it in the bag and then tell you to take it out to your office. So you realize you're giving yourself more work, and I had to take a step back. And another important point is to surrender your spouse to God. There are those issues or things that maybe we'll not even talk about here, not even communication, could be something else that you're dealing with, and you don't even know where to start from. You just go to God. And when I realized at that point that I cannot do this in my own power, I need to take him to God. And I said, God, here's your child, sort him, you know him best, and there's nothing I can do. And I decided to pray about it. And somehow, even in my communication with him, he realized it was just a song, because he knew that it was important to me. He knew the value of communication, but it was, I don't know why. I'm yet to understand. It was something he had to work at. So there are those things where each of you in the relationship, you will have to, it's very easy for one, but for the other, it's work. It could be financial. That one is very good with saving, planning, investment, and the other is just plot. Money comes, let's enjoy it. And to get to that place where they're building their muscle, to learn to save with you, to learn to grow the finances will also take work. But allow them grace and extend grace as they are working that muscle, because you're holding their hand, and before you know it, you'll both be enjoying the fruits.
Awesome, you guys. Well, that's really a very, very good sharing. That take everything to God in prayer. I mean, he's the author of this marriage. He has all your answers to your worries. Wow, thank you. That's really, really amazing. So what are your thoughts on public displays of affection? We are talking about physical intimacy again. Are they important to you, or do you think they are overrated?
I think for us, yes and no. But then I think it's important that you do what your spouse is comfortable with. Some people would be comfortable with excessive PDA. Others, if you were to even try it, they would want to kill you. So honestly, I think without going into it too much, know your person and realize, okay, this PDA is not for her in this time. Maybe this is a different form of PDA, maybe if I'm doing flowers or something in a public space, but some people are uncomfortable with things, and I would say for that one, pick and choose basing on your shoe size.
But there are some things that men can do generally, like for example, when you're with your wife, holding her hand. I don't know how many wives
There are
do
basics.
maybe
There's some really shy.
Oh, maybe, but this is just a tip to the men anyway. Holding your wife's hand goes a long way with connection. And it's proven to increase the bond. Naturally, just I heard someone say, make it a game, men.
How do you bring your hand?
Producer, take a pic of this. We need it.
You make it a game that every time you step out, everywhere you go, you hold her hand. It's just a form of affection, and you don't know what it's doing and how it's building the other types of intimacy we talked about. And maybe just to add on, also for those of us that have children, depending on the level of intimacy, I think it's important to show your children the type of relationship you have, so that they don't think that mom and dad are also brother and sister. And then when they grow up, you're now telling them this, and they don't know where it's coming from. And something we learned is, even a hug is very innocent, because we hug our children, you hug your children, and you hug your child. So if your children see you hugging, they'll know that, oh, mom and dad, there's a relationship there.
There's some fire somewhere.
Yeah, possibly. and when we started this, even with our child very young, he noticed. And he will come and barely speaking, but he'll come and push and say, hug, tata, hug. Mama, and he pushes you together because he knows every evening when you come, we hug him, and then we hug each other to show him that we're happy to be with him, we're happy to be home. And once we hug in his presence, he's jumping, he's laughing, turns around, dances, and you see he's happy. So I think it depends, like you said, your shoe size, but also within your family confines of the children. It's important for them to see that you love each other. And your husband and wife, and there's that unique relationship between the two of you in that boundary of marriage.
Not to sound mean, but let me just make this quick statement. But what my wife has said is absolutely true. Make sure at least your children see a form of intimacy existing in your marriage and love, so that when you're giving a speech at their wedding, they're not like, hey, whether my father likes the mother or loves the mother, because there are some people who go to functions and they have that shock. So please avoid stressing your children with those shocks.
Actually, such things stress children. They real stress there many ways. So I know our time is really, really, really fast spent, but let's have this as last or second last. What are your thoughts on jealousy? Do you think it's very okay to be jealous in marriage, or is it always a sign of insecurity?
Do you want the lady's opinion first?
Any, it's okay. I want an opinion from the Mugenyis.
I think when it comes to that question, I would take a step back and ask myself, where is this coming from? Where is this jealousy? Introspection. You do some introspection, because you never know that in that introspection you actually need healing. You need to surrender some things to God that maybe you dealt with, that you're insecure about, that have nothing to do with your spouse. And once you're out of that, and you still have it, then you're able to assess, why do I feel this way about my spouse? Is it because there are certain, maybe there are women around him, or there's a way he interacts with the women? Then if that's the case, aside from the introspection, then I'll be able to communicate that. I think I would prefer you not to embrace ladies this type of way, because it makes me uncomfortable. But I'm speaking to him not from a place of insecurity. I'm speaking to him from a place of, I think it's just honor as your wife, that there are boundaries between the female relationships that you have. But as husband and wife, you're supposed to be a team. So once your husband is winning, you're also winning. You're supposed to cheer each other on. And I don't think jealousy should be in that. If both of you have dealt with any roots of jealousy that you have individually, maybe roots or whatever, and also openly shared with your spouse that I'm feeling this way, but I think it's because as I was growing up, I watched my siblings do this, and they were rewarded, and I was not really performing, and it brought this out in me, and I see this still coming. Many people have things that come back that they don't know can be traced back to their childhood or their upbringing. So once you tackle that, then you're able to know, okay, so what are we dealing with now? It's this.
Yeah. Let's take it from Timothy.
I can't add so much, but just get to the root cause of it. Why am I jealous? When you answer that question, then you will get to figure out, is it really something that's important or not? I know that sometimes people get jealous because they're spending time with so and so, or things like that. But like what she has said, answer that question, why am I feeling this way? And then it will be able to be sorted out.
Wow. Thank you very much, the Mugenyis. It's been a great pleasure. Our time is really, really fast spent. Oh my God. Please give us your parting shots and then we sign out.
Okay. First and foremost, thanks for having us.
Yes.
Maybe there are just a few questions we just wanted to leave with the people watching.
Okay.
So that you can be able to give it a bit of thought. So just, my wife calls it an intimacy quiz, as when we're told we're going to talk about intimacy. And there are a few questions we have. For example, the first question I'd like to ask is, do you remember, probably in the last 3 days, having an insightful conversation that lasted more than 15 minutes with your spouse? It's a very small thing, but can you remember it? If not,
encourage the viewers to get paper and pen so that they follow together.
Yeah, honey.
When you come back here next time, they need to give you the papers.
Okay, so another one is, can you mention, or can you recall, or can you say in great detail two things that are very important to your spouse, that are on the mind of your spouse, your husband or your wife, and you can say it's this. It's that, because then you know there's conversation happening.
Yeah. Do you like also being alone with your spouse? Or do you want to run away from them?
Do you have any barriers? Do you feel like there are barriers to your intimacy? Is it a phone? Is it children? What are the barriers? Are there any barriers? Is it a yes or no? The more yeses you have, you're growing, you're nurturing your intimacy. If you have no's, and it's good to check yourself on a weekly basis, you know.
Do you even cautiously speak to your spouse, and you also feel cautiously spoken to, and do you actively listen, and vice versa? Do you feel that is something that is present?
Do you know your spouse's dreams? The last 3 months, dreams change, hopes change, but do you know them? You know, do you know them?
Do you know?
I do. Mr. Bwenje is watching. Please pick up.
You can go and ask some questions.
Okay, so just
I
as
need that paper. I have to go.
so just as we conclude, just a reminder to submit to Christ, submit to God first, and then to each other. You know, and intimacy is connection, and it's attention, and it requires consistency. So you need to you can't connect without attention, and you need to be consistent for it to have its effect. And if you feel like that there are any barriers, because if I feel like I have barriers to intimacy with him, I will double think my relationship with him. I will double think my space and my place in his life.
True.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going with that paper, and in case you meet me and we just say, please give me that paper. It's all right. It's been a pleasure really having you here. The Mugenyis, we are so blessed to have you here. We have learned a lot. And to you, our dear viewer, what shall I say? Thank you very much for loving the #1 biggest show, and that is the Family Talk Show, together with your world's favorite host, Clare Bwenje. And our topic today was intimacy in marriage. I love you so very much. Our time is really fast spent. My producer Derek right there. It is a good night. See you again next Friday. The Lord bless you. From the Mugenyis and myself, it is bye-bye. See you next time.
Bye.